What's up, the squad? Back with another video. I seen that time was going down. Make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button for me, please. Y'all see it right here. This Scott Jennings said we've spent more on Somali fraud in Minnesota than we have on the war effort in Iran. As but Democrats don't want to talk about that. Glad to see President Trump, Vice President, JD Vance, taking this fraud problem head on. Meaning head on, they have, come up with a task force, which is definitely amazing on what they're doing. I'm definitely geek for it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm definitely geek for it. Check it out right here.
A little bit of news before we break up the show today. Sounds like, and this is just coming into the Scott Jennings show, over at the White House, the president is going to sign an executive order this afternoon. You might remember that he previously, in the State of the Union, announced that Vice President Vance is going to be the point man in the administration on tackling all this fraud going on all over the country. That's being put into operation today. Let's listen to the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt in cut number 7.
What about President Trump signing this fraud task force executive order with our vice president?
Yes, later this afternoon in the Oval Office, the president and the vice president will formally launch their executive order and their task force against fraud. This is another promise made and kept by President Trump. He announced this in his State of the Union address and announced that the vice president would be overseeing this task force. So this is really going to establish a whole of government effort to fight fraud at both the state and the federal level in every state across the country. We look at states like California and New York. We know there's been hundreds of billions of fraudulent schemes that have ripped off American taxpayers. So we're going to turn every page to find and identify this fraud, to prosecute the individuals who are engaged in it. This will be, again, a whole of government effort led by the vice president, and the president will be signing that in the Oval Office this afternoon.
That's the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. All I can say to this is good. I got into it on CNN the other night with them, by the way. They all of a sudden we're at war with Iran, and the report came out that at that point the war had cost $11 billion so far. And I just pointed out, well, we've spent more on Somali fraud in Minneapolis than we've spent on the war so far. Of course, they didn't like that very much. But it's true. All of a sudden, we spend $11 billion taking out the worst people in the world, and Democrats become fiscal conservatives. But they look the other way on all this fraud in Minnesota, New York, California. Hundreds of billions. The GAO,
and I was about to say it's happening in other places, just not Minnesota.
Report, in fact, maybe up to $1 trillion in fraud. Now the president putting Vice President Vance in charge of it. We'll take a look at that on the show tomorrow. Really appreciate being here at the...
Telling y'all, definitely. And I definitely can't wait, to hold a lot of these individuals accountable when it comes down to it, because I feel as if there are so many individuals that aren't held accountable, obviously. And like I said yesterday, I put out that video yesterday, and I stated and I said that I truly feel as if it's definitely wild to have individuals that they have to just, throw up under the bus. Not literally YouTube, but literally, just, oh, okay, well, they'll take the fall for this. And nothing happens to them. It's truly insane. You got it right here. It says, Tim Walz says the only reason you hear about fraud in Minnesota is because he's ending all of the fraud. You have it here. It says nobody believes you. That's why you're being forced into retirement at the end of the year. Check it out.
I think Minnesotans have to recognize is you're hearing about fraud in Minnesota because we are prosecuting people. You're going to hear about it in other states. You're going to continue to see it. But the fix is you don't want to hear about fraud not because somebody's not prosecuting somebody. You don't want to hear about fraud because the safeguards and the systems are in place. And I don't see there's not another model. No other state has gone to a more decentralized model. Every other state has moved towards a more centralized model of accountability, and I think that's what makes most sense.
You have no accountability here. I'm going to tell you that much. There's no accountability here. Then on top of that, let me tell y'all something. Why now? We've been talking about and bringing up this fraud for how long now? It's been a while. With bringing this up, with talking about it. why is he saying the only reason you're here about fraud in Minnesota is because why have these statements now? Why not actually take that? First of all, it's too late. You hear that saying, well, it's never too late. It's definitely too late. It's definitely too late for this. The what he's doing, what he done did. I'm telling y'all, it's over with. And just because he's going into that retirement, this, that, and the other, whatever he's doing, doesn't mean that he's just out of it. He needs to be held accountable, however you put it. You have Ilhan Omar still talking crazy every chance she gets. And this is towards Pete Hegseth.
Pathetic as Pete Hegseth at this point. We've been watching his press conferences. He's saying all these crazy things.
I mean, what can you say? He's always been pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
It pains me as a Minnesotan that that's the person that we have in the administration, and I just hope he gets replaced because he's an embarrassment on a national and international stage for us.
She's the last person. First of all, let's start off by saying this. She's not a Minnesotan. I'm gonna definitely say that. I'm not even from Minnesota, and I'm gonna tell y'all she's not a Minnesotan. She is Somali, and I'm not saying that just and want to have this whole race thing or whatever individuals say and what they do in my comments and how they. She only cares for herself, and the Somalians around her. So she is Somalian, not a Minnesotan. And then she's the last person to call anybody an embarrassment. You truly have somebody like her that has a lot, the face of all of this fraud, if you want to get technical with it. But she's quick to call somebody out of their name and to bash an individual, which I truly find insane. I'm not gonna lie. You're going over most of these things. I went over a lot of this. When it comes down to Ilhan Omar's sister, says funding for PCCS includes about $33 million in grants from HHS since 2002, $2.2 million from Minnesota 2017 state capital budget approved right after Omar started her term in Minnesota House of Representatives. This is her sister right here, by the way. You got $1 million in federal funding secured by Omar in 2022. Additional $1 million in federal funding secured by Omar in April 2024. You're having a lot of this money, so a lot of these things are out. Somebody need to do something about it. It's too much out. You know what I mean? Like it's too much out right now. Says Omar denies any wrongdoing. However, these new allegations come as Omar is being investigated for a sudden jump in wealth, as detailed on her 2024 congressional disclosure form, showing a worth upwards of $30 million. In her 2003 report, she reported a worth between $40,000 and $250,000. She claims the wealth comes from her husband's winery. Y'all know that the whole winery is a joke. You can't get anything online. There's nothing in person. On site. There's nothing. Truly can't get any wine. You know what I mean? The most you've seen of the wine is probably online. I'm not gonna lie. Probably online, like on a picture, like on X or something. They don't even have like the website. You can't get none of that. Says she hosted her 2018 Congressional Victory Party at Safari Restaurant owned by convicted fraudster Salim said, who stole over $12 million by fabricating mail claims, then spent the money on personal luxuries. That would be that individual right here. A former campaign staffer, Guhad Hashish said, pleaded guilty of stealing $3.2 million. You got it right here. In May 2020, Omar was featured in a promotional video of Safari praising the program's community impact though she later condemned the fraud as reprehensible. A former campaign staffer, okay, so that's $3.2 million, pleaded guilty for that. And that's a former campaign staffer. Gahud Hashi said, I'm probably saying these names wrong, but y'all know what I mean. Omar's campaign received $7,400 in donations for three for three indicted fraudsters. Pretty wild. Omar says she didn't know about the fraud, but she says she would have still pushed to remove safeguards from nutrition. All of his BS. And I feel like everybody knows all of his BS. And it's definitely sad that you have these individuals that truly, and it's sad that you have individuals that, and I know they're investigating this, that, and the other, but man, it's so much stuff going on right now. So much stuff going on. This is Mike Lindell. Check it out right here, y'all.
Fraud in Minnesota is mind-blowing, so much so that now the Vice President of the United States is looking into it himself, the number 2 leader in the free world, looking into it. Mike, what is going on?
Well, you guys, this goes back. Remember where fraud starts? It starts with our elections. I have news. Right before the 2020 election, it was a couple months before, the first leak of fraud in the country that I believe was Minneapolis, and it was with the Somalians, believe it or not. This was, we had investigations. I actually sent stuff in back then. This was about 2 months because we can vote 45 days early in Minnesota before voting early was corruptly put into all these other states. So this started back then when we talk about fraud. And there's so much going on here. I actually, Emerald, in my own investigations of late, I actually have some bad people I knew from the past. Back when I was an addict in Minneapolis, I come from a life of addiction, and I reached out and talked to those guys yesterday, some of them, and they participated in the fraud. First you had the election fraud, then you got the China virus, and everybody's taken and just set up companies, false companies and everything here. Well, obviously the Somalians and Ilhan Omar, they took it to a whole new level where you have delivery services, you have daycares, you just heard about the autism. There are so many programs, and I think, this goes back to, Minnesota nice, just go in there. It's not Minnesota nice, it's Minnesota neglect. Our politicians here should all be put in prison on this. Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, Mayor Fry. But I want to say something, Emerald. Everyone know, you guys all know I'm running for governor here in Minnesota against Amy Klobuchar. Now let's talk about Amy. Amy and I have one thing in common. We both were all about the election fraud and getting rid of the electronic voting machines. She's been quoted many times, but she didn't get sued for it. So you talk about 2018 and 19 where Amy and I were in lockstep. Hey, we got to secure our elections. There's fraud. But you know what? When I continued on, I kept going after the fraud to tens of millions of dollars of my own money, where Amy over here, so far, I think it's up to $25 billion that came into our state through these federal programs and stuff. This money coming in. Well, I don't think Amy's a very good steward of the money when it's all gone and went to foreign countries and everywhere else, and it never got to the people it was intended for. I think people tend to forget, some of these programs might have been good programs, like we talk about that autism one, and and I'll tell you, they didn't get the money. It's not that we all got bilked out of money as taxpayers, but there's like many people, if the programs are good, when I'm governor, I'm going to look into all these welfare programs too and make sure that you get a good return on your investment. But Minnesota is the tip of the spear. We've been the Trojan horse for all the fraud, and it's been going on a very long time. And like our president said, this is going to go much further than Minnesota. I think we were let's go to Minnesota first because they're easy. And it's all this political correctness here that was here. Oh, you're racist if you question the Somalians. You're racist.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what's really happened now, Emerald, too, which is a good thing, everybody. You know me, I'm always very optimistic, and I always look at the silver lining. This fraud is going to be one of the biggest blessings this country's ever seen.
And my dad actually said something. I know most of y'all know, of my dad. And he actually said something. He like, well, and I told him, and I don't, how many people are in Minnesota? Well, how many Somalians are in Minnesota? And I told him the number. It's like, exactly. So why mess with them? There's a lot more people, in Minnesota and this, that, and the other. Listen, regardless to what, if you actually look at things and actually, just have that and pay attention to certain things, would you rather thousands of, those Somalians? And again, I'm not saying that's all, because there are actually probably Somalians there that's, obviously want a better life, that have been there, that's had, a better life, that hasn't been in the fraud, this, that, and the other. But they're messing it up for a lot of other people because you seeing how they're acting. You seeing the apartment buildings to where they're having these different gangs, and you're having all this fraud going on. And we're not talking about just daycare fraud. Y'all heard Mike. You got transportation fraud. You're having so much. You're having this with healthcare centers. I mean, there's so much fraud within it. You would rather have all these individuals within that, or would you have that completely just out to where none of these individuals are, in Minnesota in the first place? I'm not even trying to be that person, but I definitely think, it's that time, to get things in order. It definitely is, starting with Ilhan Omar. I'll tell you that. This is one of them. This is GO students. So GO students, they apply for federal aid, federal student aid, then vanish, stealing millions from hardworking taxpayers in states like Minnesota and California. I'm telling y'all, it's definitely wild. Check it out.
GO students fraud refers to schemes in which bad actors use stolen or counterfeit identities to submit college admission and federal student aid applications, enroll in courses, extract federal student aid, and then vanish with extra funds. These fraudulent actors posing as students have cost taxpayers millions of dollars, proving that our current system is being exploited at the public's expense. In 2025, the Department of Education discovered that almost $90 million in federal student aid was distributed to fraudulent actors. Millions of dollars have been dispersed to deceased individuals, and more than $40 million were collected by—
And I apologize for skipping. I don't know why it's doing this, and it's been doing this for a couple of days, so I definitely apologize.
Were collected by entities using bots disguised as students. This crisis has hit states like California and Minnesota particularly hard. In fact, over the past year, scammers stole more than $10 million from California's community colleges, where roughly 34% of applicants were identified as fake.
I'm telling y'all, it's definitely insane with what's going on. There's so many things. I mean, you have it right here, and it gets worse. We sit here and we talk about this fraud. We talk about this happening, that happening. You have to really just take a look, just actually see what's going down and see, how important it is, when it comes down to a lot that's going on. Just think about this. Think about this for a second. You have all this fraud going on. Let's start off by that. You got this fraud going on, right? We're talking about transportation. We're talking about daycares. We're talking about healthcare services. We're talking about all of this, right? When they first get, I'm pretty sure in the States, you get $7,000. You get food stamps. You get assistance on housing. You get assistance on a lot. We talk about all these things, but there's one thing missing. There's one thing. Shoplifting by Somali migrants occurs at a rate of 10 times more than the general population of Minnesota. So as a result, the state has studied the benefits of shoplifting. Can't make it up. Let me tell y'all something. A lot with what they do when it comes to shoplifting. I'm telling y'all. A lot of what they do. They'll get clothes. They'll use food stamps. First of all, when you shoplift, you have a lot of boosters. I don't know if y'all know boosters, but a booster, you have, I'm sure y'all do. I'm sure y'all know what that is. People selling out their trunk, pulling up at, this place, that place. You putting the order in. I ain't saying no names. You know what I mean? People doing that when it comes to cologne, when it comes to this, when it comes to that. You have a lot of shoplifting. 10 times more than the general population. So you have these individuals doing this. Not only that, they got food stamps. When they have in these different shops that you have the fraud in, they're using a lot of those food stamps to buy food and then put the food in their stores at a higher price. When I tell y'all that the way that they moving and getting all this money, and then people, what gets on my nerves about, a lot of individuals in Minnesota, these individuals that's protesting and sitting here supporting everything Tim Walz, Mayor Fraud, Ilhan Omar, all these individuals, like I'll be so confused. They stealing from y'all. Like what? everything. I'm telling y'all, definitely insane.
Hey, Minnesota State Representative Krista Knudsen. So today in the Labor Committee, Representative Dave Pinto requested a study for the benefits of shoplifting. There are no benefits to shoplifting for the people that are being shoplifted from. I have no idea what else to say. I'm shocked, actually. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. Who benefits from shoplifting? The criminals. Once again, the criminals benefit from shoplifting. Please take a look at the comments to see for yourself.
It is an intriguing line of questions. Several of us are on the Public Safety Committee, and yesterday there was a presentation of a group seeking to change how we address organized retail theft. And it actually had not occurred to me to ask, it probably would have been good, to make sure that they would study sort of the benefit of shoplifting and of retail theft. And because perhaps people are relying on that and sort of using that, maybe it's, assisting them in some way. I mean, these folks were describing people violating the law, but I suppose it could be useful to look into that. But ultimately, it's a policy question, right? We do want to make sure when we have a law in place, we're enforcing it. So,
I'm telling y'all, absolutely insane. So you don't just have that fraud; you have a whole operation going on in Minnesota. Pretty insane. I'm not even gonna lie. One thing about it though, got it right here. It says DHS says roughly 3,000 illegal immigrants were arrested in Minnesota over the weekend, including individuals convicted of a lot of crazy things. Check it out right here, y'all.
DHS announced tonight that they have arrested a total of some 3,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota, including over the weekend, several convicted of crimes such as homicide and sexual assault. Meantime, several dozen protesters remain here at the federal building, protesting the actions of federal agents, but they are staying behind the newly erected barriers put here by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department. It is a simple and effective so far measure that raises the obvious question: why didn't local law enforcement do this last week? Brett?
Exactly. Jonathan Hunt live in Minneapolis.
Definitely wild. So you not only have that. This was posted March 18th. This was posted March 18th. Literally everybody. The question says, do you support ICE? Literally everybody in the comments saying yes, that they do. I mean, people are seeing so much of what's going on. I feel like so many individuals that's against ICE, I feel like they don't see, like they don't really pay attention. I see so many people that post, and so many people that a lot of people are in denial. A lot of people don't want to believe a lot of things. I truly feel like that. They don't want to believe a lot of things. And that's what's sad about it. When they see on how many, and it's been everywhere, but when they see how many people have done certain things, I feel like you're not seeing the crimes, when it comes to a lot of, these assaults and, people unaliving and individuals in fraud and the shoplifting we've talked about. Way worse. I mean, you already got to deal with that, obviously, with U.S. citizens, but to have individuals that truly are illegal too, that's doing way worse, I feel like that's a problem. I truly do. I don't know about you, but I truly do. Says literal plane loads, and I'm going to pause this. Adios. But y'all see it. I don't know what song that is. But y'all see it right here. You have multiple white vans that are dropping off individuals. Says plane loads of illegals are on their way out of Minneapolis today, despite the Democrats' efforts to block their deportations. And it says keep going. Keep it moving and keep going. Trump just said that today Ilhan Omar supposedly, allegedly married her brother, and that they have proof that she is here illegally. So I feel like regardless, things are becoming a win-win. Check it out.
See, Andrew Ferguson, we're going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I know President Trump believes that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it will be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers to people who don't belong here is the primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you, Mr. President.
First ever. And then everyone else have been cheating for years. It's the first ever. And it's got to be stopped. I mean, it's got to be stopped. Think of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth world nation. One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have anything. They don't have councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother, supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman. And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or somebody is, all right? Because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's bad news, really bad news. She's so bad for our country.
Got it right there. Really bad for our country, as you see. As you see. Telling y'all. One thing about it, President Trump just warned. This is wild. Andrew Ferguson, the fraud numbers they're about to uncover will be far higher than anyone thinks. He said Minnesota is terrible, but California is many times worse than cities like New York and Chicago. It's definitely pretty wild. Says Trump told J.D. Vance and Andrew Ferguson they are the right team for this critical job. If they can't stop the theft, then no one can. Check it out.
I think they're going to find numbers, Andrew. I think you're going to find numbers that are far higher than you even think. And you know, Andrew came to us. He said, sir, he's read the stories about Minnesota. We know California is many times worse, but Minnesota is terrible. They're all terrible. Those cities are terrible. New York is terrible. What's going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're talking about is just country changing. It's country changing money. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable country where you can lower your taxes substantially for people. And I think you have an opportunity to do it. And I think you two guys are the right guy. If you guys can't do it, we've got a problem, because nobody else will be able to do it. Yes,
sir.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from our wonderful media.
So y'all have it here. One thing about it is that I know that things will, be done. It's just a matter of time. I know there's a lot of individuals wanting a lot to be done. But I just think it's just one of those things, be patient. And I feel like everybody will be, definitely happy when stuff, especially with Ilhan Omar. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate y'all. Much love to everybody. Catch y'all next one.